Abe to be, I know this is uncomfortable, but we're getting older. You got to have these sorts of conversations as you age with your pals. Podcast that is going to do its level best to not talk too much about dead kids tonight. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori is here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Yeah.
Lori is, tonight is Monday, September 9th, 2024. Once again, if you listen to all of the shows in your feed, you'll notice a theme here, which is that we're recording two shows tonight, the sports podcast earlier, and now the Cast Iron Brains podcast. Abe, any other anecdotes from the weekend?
No, I mean, on Sunday after my Colts lost, I went to go see the movies, but I'll say that at the end. But yeah, other than that, pretty quiet weekend. We
had a whole bunch of baseball. Didn't get to watch much NFL at all because Sunday is dominated by youth baseball. I started my team with 10 kids on the minor league team. One of them was injured before the season. He's got a broken finger. He's going to be out. He's week to week at this point. Probably not going to make it to the first game, but hopefully we'll have him for the second game in a couple of weeks. And then mom shows up to practice. A different mom shows up to practice last Thursday and says, so my son, who's on your team, fell out of a tree a couple hours ago and broke his arm.
Classic.
Wow.
Just literally fell out of a tree, broke his arm, and will not be participating this year. So we're down to 8 healthy players on the minor league team, which careful observers of the game of baseball will note is not enough to field a whole team. And not sure what we're going to do. We'll play with 2 outfielders, I guess. Good thing it's fall ball and not the much more serious spring baseball.
Is there a minimum number where, like, you couldn't do that? Like, we'll just put 2 instead of, like, is there, like, you got to 6 or something? You couldn't possibly...
If we got to 6, it would be hard to play the game because with 7 and certainly with 8, we can get, like, the other team will just send one of their kids into our outfield to fill space. And sort of play against his team for that half inning. It's what we've had to do in the past when another team is down a player. Like at the major league level, it's another story. You don't really want to put where the games are sort of more competitive and the kids really care about winning and losing. You don't want to put one of your own kids in the field for the other team because then it gets weird if the ball gets hit to them. Like how much effort are they going to give? Right. And then if your kid makes an out against your team, now they're the asshole, you know?
Right.
But at the minor league level, it's fine. We just swap kids around. And I've had as few as I played against the team.
They don't know the difference.
Yeah, I played against a team last season that only had 7 that day. We would just send them 2 defenders every single time to play center field and right field. Anyway. That's what we've been up to around here. This is Cast Iron Brains, which means it's time to move into news and politics talk. First, I want to talk about the New York Times Siena poll that came out over the weekend, which shows Kamala Harris and Donald Trump still in something of a dead heat, but it has been interpreted as the slowing of Kamala-mentum, that this represents the end of the honeymoon in some way. I'm not sure that it does that because it tracks fairly neatly with everything else that we know about this race to this point, as long as you don't get too emotional about the Kamala hype train and the joy fest that we've been experiencing over the last 6 to 8 weeks. This has been a coin flip all along. The moment that Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala became the de facto nominee, this was going to be a 50-50 proposition, and it was all going to come down to a couple of states and ultimately probably just a couple of counties in a couple of states. And that's where we are now. Hopefully, what this does is it snaps some people back into reality about Kamala Harris's chances, because there's been this feeling of inevitability to Kamala's victory that I've picked up in mostly in media and on social media. But that's not the case. This is a very highly losable race for Kamala Harris and the Democrats, and this poll makes that clear.
Would that not be preferable to the 2016 experience? Because I do wonder, like, the read of this poll and other polls in the last week or so, where it's kind of plateaued, it's leveled off, it hasn't gone even further towards Harris, which I always thought that makes sense, because like there's a ceiling for Harris support, just like there is a floor for Trump support. Like, Trump is just this known commodity. This is his third at bat. And so, like, he'll get a sizable number. So if he has a floor, that means Harris can go beyond, like, 52% maybe. Like, that's, like, the like, nationally. Like, you're not going to get to, like, 55, 60%.
And she's only going to catch a majority of support based on the fact that she's up against Trump.
Right.
Her approval is still very slightly underwater.
Right.
Even with all of the positive coverage over the last couple of months, she's still very, I think it's like, according to the NY Times Siena poll, it's just like 0.1%. But she is still, her negatives outweigh her positives just a hair.
Right.
Of course, Trump is significantly underwater relative to her, but it's not like she's a wildly popular figure. And up until 8 weeks ago, she wasn't popular at all.
And, to that point, I do wonder, like, how come that always doesn't translate? Like, 2016, maybe, I don't know if 2020 was worse, the margins, but, like, 2016, I remember there was a lot of talk about how both Clinton and Trump had very high unfavorables. Like, the net difference was pretty staggering for both.
Right.
And with this race right now in 24, like, Harris is, like, slightly underwater, and then Trump is his typical underwater. But it's not the same. But, like, in 2016, even though Hillary had such big negatives, she was up, like, 10 points in the polls. Right? Yeah. So it's weird how that... And now, like, Harris is better than Clinton was as far as likability or favorable numbers, but she's basically at a dead heat with Trump.
Does this speak more to your confusion or mystification about what the fuck is going on with the polls this cycle?
Yeah, I mean, again, I am still like every time these polls come in, and they've kind of settled down since Biden left, like, where things are basically about the same. I mean, if you look at 538, they're like 55, 45, or sometimes it'll get lower than that for Harris. Other places have it basically at a 50-50. When they do the state-by-state breakdown, you see how even when it's a Trump state, he's up, like, in North Carolina by a point. And even if it's a Harris state, she's up, like, barely a point in Pennsylvania. Like, even if you give those states to those candidates, it's not by much. They're all within the margins. And so, like, anything, it can break any which way, and no one should be surprised.
They're very much within the margins. Wisconsin is 50-47 for Harris, according to this latest Time Siena poll. Michigan, 49-47 Harris. Pennsylvania, 49-48 Harris. Nevada, 48-48. They give it a slight lean to Harris, even though the numbers are the same there. In Georgia, Trump gets the slight lean at 48-48. North Carolina, Harris, 48-47. Arizona, 48-48. Like, this is it's right. Fucking bonkers, but it can very much go either way at this point.
Right.
And the independent vote is still seemingly up in the air. There's a surprising number of people who are just fine with Trump. I was looking at the so-called crosstabs where they break down the very specific demographic breakdown of who participated in this poll. And it can be somewhat revealing, but it doesn't actually help you understand what the thought process was, because this is a likely voters poll. And when you say likely voters, it's not like they just ask the person, hey, are you likely to vote? Of course, they do ask the person that.
Right.
But the response to that question just goes into the formula, into the algorithm that the polling outfit has determined is going to be how they extrapolate 1,600 people that they talk to into the wider 180 million person American electorate. And likely voters mean something different from one poll to the next, and that's why you get these polling averages hopefully flatten out some of the confusion there. There was, in that breakdown, in the crosstabs, there was a funny moment as I'm scrolling through, and it was a recognition question, like, do you know who this person is? And the only demographic that any part of the population doesn't know who Donald Trump is. It's 0.5% of likely Hispanic voters, apparently, just have never heard of Donald Trump. And when you further look at the breakdown, it's like 30 to 45-year-old Hispanic voters, less than 0.5% of them. And this is the only, it's zeros across the board.
Right.
And then there's a few Hispanics, older Gen Z or younger millennial Hispanics who have just not heard of Donald Trump. And it's like, if anyone is showing up in this poll who's a likely voter who has never heard of Donald Trump, I don't think that's a likely voter.
Yeah.
Like, who is that person? And what have you done to include this person in any sort of an opinion situation when it comes to United States politics?
Also, I imagine that that's probably just like some sort of statistical noise, because you're right. First of all, if you haven't heard of Trump, like the entire exchange with this person you're conducting this poll with should be just confusing. Like, what's going on? Where am I? What is happening? Like, there are other questions you don't have the answers to.
That's when you hang up the phone if you're the pollster and try to get somebody else on the other end, right? Oh, you've never heard of Donald Trump? I don't think that you're a representative of anything when it comes to American opinion.
Also, the likely voter category, isn't that also based on like whether they voted in previous elections? So this group would have said yes to that, but no to who is Donald Trump?
Well, we don't know, because we don't know what their formula is for determining a likely voter. That's the sort of proprietary information that they keep close to the vest. I know it's very close. I still, because when we talk about you being mystified by the polls, and I somewhat am also, and it largely comes down to a question of enthusiasm for me at this point. Like, who do I think is going to be more motivated to avoid the other person? And it's a dueling thing going on, because, of course, you would think the majority of Americans would be like, aren't we done with Donald Trump? But also, people really fucking don't like the Biden administration. Right. And it is hard. They're doing a very good job of it, but it is hard to pretend like Kamala Harris has not been a vital part of the Biden administration over the course of the last 4 years, because she was the vice president, right? Like, as silly as the position is, and meaningless as the position is, you're just sort of waiting to see if the guy dies or something else bad happens to him. You don't have any real responsibilities. She has married herself to Joe Biden in ways almost just to be polite, right? Like, she doesn't want to shit all over Joe Biden.
Right.
Or his policies. There was a piece by Jonathan Chait that I read that said that now's the time for Kamala to jettison her connection to Joe Biden. And it's
Could she quit? Could she just quit?
Well, no, but she could say, like, these are the 6 different ways in which I would have done things differently had I been president rather than Joe, right? And then there's another argument that says that the thing that's killing Biden right now is that he's effectively dealing with the negative consequences of the Trump presidency, but he has to take it on as the incumbent, and Trump does not. Whereas if Trump had won in 2020, then he would have been looked upon, and whoever if it was Pence or whoever who was running to succeed him, would have to deal with the sort of, because it's not like the president actually controls the economy, right? It's not like the president is actually like it's not Joe Biden's fault that shit went south in Afghanistan in the way that it did. I mean, to some extent, yes, he's responsible for the fact that he authorized the pullout and those soldiers died, and it has gotten worse and worse for the people of Afghanistan as the Taliban takes over again. But, like, to some extent, this is just the fucking river of history flows through the president rather than the president controlling it. And Joe Biden has to eat the shit that Donald Trump put in the water upstream to some extent. And so Kamala does too, right? Like, this is that's sort of her job. So maybe Chait's point is, look, the more you can distance yourself from Joe Biden and his record and this administration's record over the last few years, the better. Because the other thing to look at with these things, this Time Siena poll, is that on the issues, with the exception of abortion, Trump sort of has an advantage. If this is strictly speaking an issues election, the American public is generally speaking on the side of Republicans and Trump rather than Kamala Harris and Democrats.
And that's been
in terms of-
consistent, right? All the polling that you see whenever they do break it down by issue,
Right.
other than maybe they're, I guess sometimes they'll include healthcare in the groups, but like it's usually like economy and like immigration or the Israel conflict. They'll break it down, and it's like you'll see like one or two things in the Harris camp, and everything else by sometimes pretty healthy margins towards Trump.
Right. She's got abortion on lockdown, and then everything else is either basically a coin flip or well into the camp of the Republicans.
Right. So you know what's interesting? You mentioned about like shit just sometimes happens, and the presidents are just there to get the blame or the credit. I mean, a similar thing happened to Trump. I mean, the pandemic happened on an election year, right? Had that not happened, maybe he would have won, right? So like sometimes you just have to deal with the shit that's on your plate, and this inflation.
Right, and to put a fine point on it, is there any doubt that the inflation would have been the same under a Trump administration as it had been under the Biden administration? He authorized the first giant pile of payouts.
I mean, yeah, basically, I mean,
you think that he wouldn't have wanted to cut more checks?
Right.
You think that the Republican Congress wouldn't have been fucking just as happy to cut more checks to the American people? I have no doubt in my mind that the inflation would be the issue around Donald Trump's neck this time around if he had won in 2020.
But Trump wouldn't care then because he'd be the outgoing president. It'd be somebody. It'd be like DeSantis or whatever bum that they trotted out. So yeah, he wouldn't care if he was on the tail end of his presidency, and also he wouldn't have the January 6th tip off when people realized what happened. So like maybe his resume is like a chaotic presidency, but a 2-term one. The people reelected him. But what's interesting is so Harris is part of the current administration as the number 2. She should, in theory, be the incumbent candidate. But she's not treated that way necessarily because she's, I mean, this is all a weird year anyways, but she's been the front runner for just 2 months. And so Trump was the president, right? And everybody knows this guy. Like, it almost feels like he's just been there longer because he has. But he's not in any sort of power position. He's just the guy who used to be president. Right. So it's a very unusual environment, and maybe that's why the numbers are a little wacky. But yeah, Harris should be getting some of the blame as the incumbent, but I don't think she is. That's why her favorability numbers are better than Biden's. Because I guess people recognize at some level that one guy makes a decision and not two.
We finally get a debate tomorrow night, Abe, on Tuesday the 10th. The rules have been established. I haven't gotten a chance to really delve deep into them. There was some back and forth about whether or not mics would be muted or not
that
while
hasn't
the
changed,
other person
right?
was talking.
Right. I don't think that has changed. I think everything's stayed the same more or less.
The most contentious issue has been whether a candidate's microphone would be muted while their opponent is speaking. The mics were muted in the Trump-Biden debate in the aftermath of a 2020 clash between the two, when Trump repeatedly interrupted Biden and moderator Chris Wallace, making what was being said at times unintelligible. Harris's campaign pushed for the microphones to be live at all times, allowing her to interject and Trump to be heard if he tries to talk over her, but the mics will be muted when the other candidate is speaking as before. Other rules and regulations will be similar too. 9 p.m. Eastern, go for 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. David Muir and Lindsay Davis will be the only ones asking questions, and the candidates will not be allowed to ask each other questions.
Will there be a pleasantries at the top? A handshake, some sort of thing?
Oh, I don't know. I always have
Can
to
they
wait.
meander out loud? I wonder what my opponent thinks of that.
Yes.
That's what I would do if I wasn't allowed to ask questions.
And no audience. Unlike debates from previous elections, but like the June debate, there will be no studio audience.
Okay.
We will watch that live, and then we are planning on doing not an emergency podcast at all, but we will do a quick reaction to the debate immediately afterwards, so that we don't have to wait a week plus to hear what Cast Iron Brains thinks about the goings on there. This is an enormous debate for Kamala Harris and less important, I think, for Donald Trump. His ceiling out of this debate is minimal,
right.
Unless you count her fucking up as being part of his potential positive outcome here. She could make a mess of things. He could certainly make a mess of things. But I think that given her limited exposure to this point in terms of the harsh light of the media glow. The only interview still having been the pleasant sit-down with Dana Bash and Tim Walz a little more than a week ago, where she was not subjected to tough questioning by any stretch. This should be her toughest test to date, and if she fucks it up, it's going to be really distressing about the prospects moving forward. And if she fucks it up, she's probably going to have to push for another debate.
Right.
I mean, there's still plenty of time. There were 56, 57 days out from Election Day. I think the earliest of early voting has begun in some places, but largely not yet. But she cannot afford to fuck this up.
So,
and yeah,
on that point, you would want to get ahead of that. So if you're anticipating a possible need for a second debate, wouldn't you want to work that out before? Because if you stumble on Tuesday and then your camp is asking for another debate, you're basically conceding the point that you stumbled on Tuesday, and you're coming with a weaker hand. So then Trump would say, okay, we can do another one. It'll be a town hall one, like the one where he was kind of hovering over Hillary Clinton. And with an audience, if we're gonna do it again, I want something like that. So
it's gonna be my rules this time, yeah.
Because and then the person asking has the weaker hand, right? Like if I don't even know what Trump could do to mess this up. I mean, there's this Trump amnesia thing that happens where like whatever Trump does, it just kind of comes and goes. It doesn't matter. So like I think he's fine. But if he did say something so stupid, and the team thought that we need a second one, then Harris would be like, no, we're not doing another one, or they'll just do another one of these, like in early October. So like maybe it would have been better for both camps just as an insurance policy to settle on terms for a second debate before this one debate that they're going to have. And also, someone on the weekend panel shows mentioned this. It makes sense if you think about it, because this is the third time Trump is running, but no candidate has participated in as many general election debates as Trump, and no one has probably prepped for fewer of these debates than he has, right? Every time, even in the June debate, like Trump was doing whatever he wanted. He didn't need to do any prep, and there was all this talk about how Biden was like just dialed in, and he was doing all this, after the European trip that caused them to be sick or whatever. But he was like at Camp David doing all these preps, and he's ready to go. And oddly enough, I'm hearing the same things now about Harris, how she's in Pittsburgh somewhere, like doing all these preps. And meanwhile, Trump is like, just show up and just say things, and things work out fine. And it's just weird that he's done so many of these that it doesn't matter. It
matters little how well prepared she is in terms of an ability to riff on policy for 2 or 3 minutes at a go. And it has everything to do with her attitude and comportment and sort of weird interpersonal behavior and how she will be judged psychologically and emotionally, right? Like that's all that matters coming out of this debate. She can have full command of the issues. She could have an Elizabeth Warren-esque essay at her ready for every single answer, and it won't fucking matter if she appears to be weaker than him on the stage, right? If she appears to be in some way...
Well, he is much more attractive than she is.
This is easily my favorite thing that Donald Trump has said in years, and I'll play the clip now. It's just not getting nearly enough attention. I know that people think it's funny, but this should be played constantly on repeat. This is one of the funniest things this man has ever said.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala. No, I couldn't believe it. She said, I had never heard that one. They said, no, her biggest advantage is that she's a beautiful woman. I'm going, I never thought of that. I'm better looking than she is. And
I am a better looking person than Kamala.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala.
He is a 78-year-old man.
I'm better looking than she is.
Who's standing in front of a crowd of supporters insisting that he's better looking than Kamala. This has nothing to do with whether or not Donald Trump is in fact better looking than Kamala Harris, which he obviously is not, right? Like peak Donald Trump. The most handsome version of Donald Trump, not the NFT trading card where he's been made up to look like a superhero, but like reality Donald Trump in like 1988 or whatever he would consider to be.
He was never attractive.
Right. Like he always sort of looked a little bit off. Like a little bit. He doesn't have great features. He's not a particularly handsome
No.
man. Like you can sort of see occasionally.
He's a charismatic guy. I mean, he's very charismatic.
That's not the same.
right, but
Right.
yeah, that's true.
But Kamala Harris at 60 or nearly 60, whatever she is,
She looks good.
she looks good.
Yeah.
And she was
She's never had kids, so she looks good.
right. And
the same
she's
age
a
as
pretty
Tim Walz.
lady.
Yeah, it's weird that they're the same age. Her VP candidate, they're like 6 months apart, and they look.
No,
years
that dude
apart.
is 15 years older than her. That's a weird lie that you've just told.
They're literally 6 months apart. But
Well,
yeah,
he has too many kids.
It's
if you-
I am a better looking person than Kamala is legitimately one of the weirdest and funniest things this person has ever said. Like, why is this? Because the problem is that he didn't like that she looked so beautiful on a magazine cover.
I think it was a Time
Like, he
magazine,
saw-
wasn't it? Yeah.
Right. He saw her on a magazine cover and was like, this is bullshit. This is AI. This is somebody's been too heavy with the Photoshop because she's not nearly as pretty as I am. Like, what weird fucking Snow White witch are you, Donald? This is very strange, even for you.
If one of these pharmaceutical companies could somehow bottle Trump's confidence, it would like cure all depression. Like people are gonna be like, "I'm the greatest thing ever." Like just this positive self-image. Like he has that, and anytime somebody
But it's no, he
disputes
it's-
it, he thinks of
no,
himself
don't
very highly.
Bottle that.
I don't want to overstate this because it feels like what's the name of the writer who came up with the cruelty is the point? Adam somebody. What was that fucker's name? He
Do
used
you
to.
want me to Google it?
Yeah, sure.
The cruelty is the point.
He was a New Yorker columnist, I think, or the Atlantic maybe.
Adam Sewer?
Yeah, Adam Sewer,
Serwer.
whatever, a mediocre writer.
Nice.
Well, whatever. He came to prominence because of a certain moment in American culture, and I'm glad that either he's not on Twitter anymore or Twitter's not feeding me his stuff anymore because he's not that interesting. But he wrote that the cruelty is the point, and I can't even remember now why I'm bringing that up.
Because of how
Confidence.
much better looking Donald Trump is.
Oh, it's a point that like peak Adam Serwer would make. So I don't want to belabor it. But if you believe that Donald Trump is more attractive than like a better looking person than Kamala Harris, the only reason for that is racism. The only possible explanation for believing that Donald Trump is more attractive or better looking than Kamala Harris is that you are deeply racist. And you cannot control it. And you might not even recognize it. You probably don't know that you're a racist, but you're a racist if you think that Donald Trump is more attractive than Kamala Harris. All right. I'm going to play a clip from Megyn Kelly, who I generally do not like. But this
does
came
she have a show? How do you find Megyn Kelly content? She got like a podcast?
She's got a very popular podcast, and that's actually an interesting sort of side conversation. She is more popular now than she has ever been in terms of people consuming her content.
Really?
Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald, all of these people are wildly more popular now than they've ever been. Tucker Carlson interviewed a literal Nazi apologist, someone who, instead of laying the blame for World War II at the feet of the Nazis and Hitler, instead believes that the true villain of World War II is Winston Churchill, and makes this and
Thought
argues
you were
this
going to
point.
say the Jew, and that would have been.
No, he does though.
I know.
He does though say that Hitler wanted to work with the Europeans to figure out an amicable solution to the Jewish question.
That's
Or
one
the-
way
or-
of framing
or
it.
the Jewish problem, and that it was Winston Churchill who insisted on war instead, and that the Holocaust was simply a result of Hitler being put into no other position but like, well, what are we gonna do with all of these fucking Jews that we've rounded up? If we've got to do something, and so a Holocaust happens, and it's not Hitler's fault; it's Winston Churchill's fault.
You know, not to get bogged down in these stupid people, but like World War II was very well documented. It was a well documented event. There's a lot of evidence supporting the case that was made, and yet people like this are saying the opposite is true, and
Yes.
they have a following.
Oh, huge following. And then he goes on Tucker Carlson, and 10 million people listen to him, which is, Tucker used to get 2, 3, 4 million people to watch his show on Fox, and now has a much bigger following. And it's just bizarre because the following is increased. It's kind of like the old thing about, like, Rogan is in this similar situation as well, where tens of millions of people listen to the Joe Rogan program, and it has no bearing whatsoever on the cultural conversation at large. And it's very interesting that that's the case to me. Like, Tucker used to have an enormous amount of sway with lawmakers on the Hill, with mainstream media people, with conservative media types. If Tucker said something crazy or interesting on his show, it was covered in the mainstream press because a large portion of his audience were influential Republican types and conservative types who were listening to him. And he was sort of forming policy in a way. He was driving the conversation. Now, way more people listen to him, and he drives nothing. It's amazing.
Do you think it's because it's like a global audience? I'm sure a bunch of random people are watching Tucker Carlson in Europe. I can't imagine it, but like, is that
I'm
why
sure
the
that's
numbers?
part of it. A bigger part of it is that he's completely out of elite circles now. He lives in a fucking weird, like, Kaczynski cabin in Maine, and does his YouTube or Twitter show from there, and it just doesn't fucking matter, right? Like, he's just not part of the elite conversation in a way that, like, his name would come up on Meet the Press every single week.
That's true.
In the past. Anyway, I stumble across this Megyn Kelly clip, and it speaks directly to something that I tried to articulate last week, but failed to. And I'll play the clip now.
I'm sorry, Dana Bash. I'm disappointed. I actually like Dana Bash. She's tough to dislike. She's a nice person, and honestly, she's a real journalist. She really is. My overall take, can I tell you, is that this is what happens when you have a meek person interviewed by a meek journalist. That's what we saw. I don't wish to personally offend her, but that's what I saw. She didn't have the stones to really press Kamala Harris, and I think that's because she knew Kamala Harris couldn't take it. So she went very gently with her, and as a result, we didn't get Kamala Harris really pressed on any answers, and we didn't see her in any uncomfortable position, which is your job. As a journalist in that kind of a setting, when you are the only one to get an interview with the person who could be the next president of the United States, and you go soft on her, you've failed us. You've failed the profession and the country.
I want to set aside the name calling, the meekness point. I think is just silly. But aside from the meekness point that she's making, I think she's making a fairly legitimate point here. But I think that there's a
little
good
dramatic.
Of course, it's dramatic, but there's a good explanation for it. But I'll let Abe go first.
So what's interesting is I'm sure Megyn Kelly knows this, and this is not a. I think it has been criticized. It's called access journalism, right? Where there are some journalists where, for the access to the exclusive get, they're not going to be too tough on the subject because they want to maintain their relationship. And it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Dana Bash is thinking this is a 50-50 chance, like that Harris is the president. And if we have I already got this get, so she must have some sort of connection with that camp. She may get future exclusives with the sitting president and Kamala Harris. There could be other considerations to make. So they're like, I'm not gonna be like hardball questions, especially the first interview. And so maybe they're making a calculation like that. I mean, on Tuesday, they'll have 90 minutes to ask all the questions to Harris and Trump. So maybe it's something like that. And I think Megyn Kelly kind of knows like how the business works. And she's like, but she's playing to a different audience, saying like, oh, if that were me, I would have done ABC, which is not true. I mean, if you look at the interviews Trump, what was that town hall that Trump had? I mean, I will say Sean Hannity, I don't think he pretends to be a journalist, so it doesn't matter what sort of thing they do over there. But if somebody else, like the new Fox News Sunday person, Bream, did an interview, they would ask some tough questions, but they wouldn't go like too deep because you want to continue to have that access.
I think it's a huge problem that you can kind of compare what Kamala Harris encountered with Dana Bash to what Trump encounters with a Fox town hall hosted by Sean Hannity. Now, it's not, by no means is it the same thing. Hannity literally spends that entire hour just shoveling shit for Trump and being like, "Here, sir,
Just teeing
my
him up,
hero.
Yeah, just teeing him up. Yeah.
Respond to the haters, sir." Like it's not the same thing. But the chances that Harris was going to encounter an aggressive, tough question were about the same as Trump's chances of encountering an aggressive and tough question. And that's a big fucking problem. And Megyn Kelly puts her finger on it. I think that your explanation is plausible, that she's sort of planning ahead, thinking, look, maybe Harris is 60-40 to win the presidency, and if I can develop a good relationship with her now, I can be one of the people that she wants to talk to moving forward, and maybe this helps my career in some way. I don't think it's that, though. I think that it's something much simpler than that, which is recall Sarah Palin and her interviews with Charlie Gibson and Katie Couric shortly after she was made John McCain's choice in 2008 to be his vice presidential pick. And Katie Couric and Charlie Gibson, I don't want to say that they delighted in taking in picking Sarah Palin apart, but I don't think it would be unfair to say that they sort of delighted in picking Sarah Palin apart, in revealing her to be the sort of fraudulent dummy that Sarah Palin was, to be the outsider, to be someone who did not have a full command of the facts and of policy in a way that we might expect our vice presidential candidates traditionally to have that command. And Sarah Palin was humiliated by those journalists and others in the run up to the 2008 election, willingly so. She kept subjecting herself because apparently that was a thing that we used to demand of our candidates, right? Like you have no choice but to go talk to the mainstream media, or else they'll tear you apart. And so at least go there and let them tear you apart, and then maybe you can play the victim role down the road a little bit. But that was a media cycle that I won't say that it destroyed Sarah Palin by any means, but it revealed her to be fraudulent. It revealed her to be incapable of doing the job to a large segment of the American population, right? Like a lot of people said, "Oh, that's not a serious person," after watching Sarah Palin get taken apart by Katie Couric and Charlie Gibson. And it could have been anybody. I'm not singling those people out in particular. Sarah Palin was going to be dismissed roundly based on her ability to conduct an interview. I think that there is some concern that Dana Bash would have going into an interview with Kamala Harris, knowing what we know about how mealy-mouthed she can get, about how she can start spinning word circles that don't make any goddamn sense, right? When she gets loose with a sentence, things get very ugly for her. And she doesn't know where it's going to land. She doesn't know what she's saying, and she says nothing. She says platitudes and nothing for long stretches of time. I think Dana Bash was probably concerned that she doesn't want to be the person who reveals Kamala Harris to be a fraud 8 weeks before the election takes place, or 9 weeks before the election takes place. That would weigh incredibly heavily on me. And I'm no one, right? And as an anonymous person, I would be legitimately nervous about painting or revealing Kamala Harris to be ill-equipped for the job of being president in a way that leads to Donald Trump becoming the president, right? And to be clear, I think that's a huge problem for our country, right? I think it speaks very poorly of our ability to select individuals who we can trust to lead the country, because Dana Bash is legitimately probably concerned about revealing Kamala to be ill-equipped to do the job because of the social opprobrium that she would have to endure for having done that, and giving Donald Trump a little bit more of a chance to become the next president.
You know, it's interesting. I've never considered that like an interviewer would be worried about like sandbagging somebody's chances, but maybe that's true.
chances that they would not have hesitated to do to Sarah. Like there is that institutional bias of the media that they would have no problem doing that to Sarah Palin in 2008. They clearly had no problem doing it. They have a problem now. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of their generally Democratic lean that has only been reinforced by the turn of the Republicans to complete fucking insanity, right? Over the course of the last decade, that the trumpeting has made it that much easier for elites to circle the wagons and try to hold on to the institutions that have mattered to them over the course of the entire fucking country, right? Like it makes sense to me that would be the reaction.
But I mean, the Sarah Palin experience, I recall it differently. I think they weren't even like hardball questions. Like they were like, "Hey, what name a newspaper?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know." Like it was like that level of gotcha. Like it wasn't even like very difficult. But with Harris, I will say after the Biden.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong. It is a bit like taking candy from a third grader, right? Like there's a little bit of that. She was uniquely unqualified. To sit there in that chair, right. Probably.
But with Harris, and you're right. Sometimes there is this circling about a thing that she does. I did think that she, relative to the moment, handled herself well after the Biden performance. Because, I was thinking, I did not watch it live. I was watching a movie, but just from all the messages that I got, it went poorly. So I watched it on a time delay, and I stuck around to watch the rest, the interviews that came after. And I think Harris had the unenviable task of trying to clean that up. She had to go speak to somebody. I think it was Anderson Cooper, or I don't know who it was. And they're like, "What the fuck?" And she's like, "Hey, had a bad he started slow, but he did this thing." And maybe it's easier to talk when it's somebody else's fuck up and not your own. And so we'll see if she gets jammed tomorrow, it'll be her fucking up and not poor old man Biden, and I'm going to come to his rescue, because she handled that as good as you can. I mean, that was a garbage performance, so there was nothing you could do to improve it. But you're right. If she does get jammed up, or I don't know, where would she get, if there was a follow-up question? Because, Dana Bash should ask her about, in 2019 you said you were for this and now you're saying you're not. In 2019 you said you were for this other thing and now you're saying you're not. So I do wonder, what would be the question that would be, she'll be pressed? Because in this format, there's no audience.
It's not the one question. Yeah. It's the follow-up and then the follow-up, right? It's always that. And not the Kristen Welker demand to say the thing 3 times before we can move on, right? An actual engaged and smart interviewer can try to pin her down on something,
right?
And make her look bad. Right. And I wonder if Dana Bash was selected by the Harris people because they didn't think that she was going to really press the issue when it comes to they were not going to really try to hold Kamala's feet to the fire. And also the fact that it was 2 against 1 in reverse. The fact that it was Harris and Walz there, and automatically with just one interviewer in the room, with Dana being the only one sitting across the table from them, it feels like you're at a disadvantage as a journalist, right. I think. And maybe that 2-on-1 dynamic factored into it in a way that won't happen tomorrow at the debate when we've got Trump and Harris up there against 2 journalists asking the questions. Who do you think, and David Weir might be the answer. I don't know him well in terms of his interview style. I haven't seen him do a lot of top-level interviews now that I think about it. Lester Holt does a pretty good job of interviewing these people. I thought that Chuck Todd used to do pretty good on Meet the Press, interviewing high-level people without fucking things up too bad.
Sometimes I think he's dead because I know Tim Russert's dead, and now that they're both not on Meet the Press, my brain can't get it straight.
Who would you expect to hold? It's silly to say that maybe George Stephanopoulos would, I guess, but right. I don't know who I would expect to really give Kamala a thorough going over. And I hope that we get it tomorrow. I hope that she is able to withstand whatever pinning down Weir and the other person try to do to her, because I think it actually fucking matters that before we make someone the president, we find out whether like how they behave under pressure,
Right.
and whether or not they can withstand that sort of scrutiny. And we know, and it's fucking bonkers because Donald Trump is on the other side. It's like, well, but we don't hold him to that standard at all, right? 46% of the American voting public at a minimum is going to vote for this guy in November, no matter what, right? He could take a dump on the stage, as you say, and it will not affect his bottom line in a meaningful way. And so why should we hold Kamala to that same standard? It's like, I don't know, because we should, right? Because that the standard should not be whatever we hold Donald Trump to, or whatever the worst among us hold Donald Trump to. The standard should be something higher than that.
I will say, just to, I've been making sports predictions and they have been going very well the last couple of weeks. I will say one thing. There is absolutely nothing that Trump can say or do at the debate stage that's going to hurt him. Like, nothing. There's nothing. He could talk about Hannibal Lecter, how he had lunch with him yesterday. It won't matter. Like, it doesn't matter whatsoever. So you're right. The standards are not going to be the same. But that's that's how it is. This is the reality we're in, and that's what it is. So, like, with Harris, I've been the Shannon Bream, the moderator for the Fox News, taking over for what's his face, Wallace. She's actually not bad. Yeah,
I haven't watched more than one or two of those since she took over.
She's not bad. She's pretty good with the questions. So, like, maybe somebody like her. I don't know. I thought, like, Harris, she should have just done a one-on-one with Scott Pelley, done a 60 Minutes thing. But, like, maybe they just didn't want that for the first interview. Maybe they would do that, like, if she were to become president, that would be a natural first interview. So I don't know who else they could put up there to make it more challenging. But the questions are there. I mean, they have all these producers on the people, with the questions ready in this binder. So I just ask the question and follow up, and they'll say whatever they're going to say.
Yeah. I do. I mean, I know that, Lori, you said that Megyn Kelly was a bit dramatic there at the end with she's failed journalism and she's failed the country. If we do not put our presidential candidates, like, she has not had to go through any ringer at this point. There's been no ringer.
Okay,
she did not have to win a primary. She didn't have to win anything. She just had to hang out long enough for Joe Biden to beclown himself in such a fashion that it looks like he's ready for diapers and the beach. And then they just moved her into the slot. And that's what happened. You should have to face a higher bar to become the president of the United States. And maybe it is the 46% of Americans who continue to insist that Donald Trump should be our leader, who have failed America.
Yeah, like what the fuck? She's a senator. She's been a senator for fucking ever.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't help but think if this were a man we were talking about, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
no, I find that to be utterly
Softball
ridiculous.
questions to dudes, I think, would fly right over Megyn Kelly's head. Wouldn't even bother her.
She hasn't. I mean, whatever. That's an unfalsifiable claim.
I know
so there's no point in me arguing against it.
I know. I almost didn't say anything. It's just that I can't help it.
Of course, Megyn Kelly would be upset if there was a man getting similar treatment to Kamala Harris here, who had just been anointed into this spot and was not being grilled by the mainstream press. And there's always been. And it's an obnoxious thing to listen to Republicans and conservatives complain about the liberal media bias, but I think it's undeniable what I said earlier about the fact that someone like Dana Bash or any of a number of other dozens of nationally prominent mainstream journalists simply would not want to take the chance of undermining Kamala's chances in a big public way. They do not want to be the person who leads to her humiliation and therefore lowers her chances.
But also maybe if Donald Trump weren't the other one, they wouldn't be so tiptoey.
Absolutely. That's of course. That's 100% of it. That it is because of the negative partisanship factor of who's coming from the other side. It doesn't make it good. It makes it completely fucking unacceptable that this is the state of our national politics. That's the point that I'm trying to make. All right. Do we want to talk about the shooting in Winder in Georgia at all? Is there anything to say about the school shooting that happened? What was it, last Thursday? 4 dead. Not too many more injured than that. I think 9 or 10 injured.
Yeah. But they're all
2 adults, 2 children.
Yeah, they're all the ones that are injured are going to be fine. At least that's what I heard when the news came out. Like it seems like it's just going to be. It's not like the number is going to go up. We're at 4.
Right. J.D. Vance said something that caused a stir to some extent. He said this is a sad fact of life in America or something like that.
I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools.
Not exactly to excuse it or accept it, but fundamentally, when you say it's a sad fact of life in America, it's how that comes across is like you're sort of accepting it. And then he says something about how this is psychos and I'm sorry, but unless we turn our schools into hard targets and have fucking guards and posted sentries and locked doors all of the time, this is just going to be what psychos do. Psychos are just going to get a gun and go into school and shoot them up. And it's always easiest to just call the people who end up doing this psychos or evil. I will play this clip from CBS News. This is Strassman. I won't be so crass.
I was about to say, you're not going to put me on the spot. Did he get off a good one on this?
To play the game. He does not, though. I mean, did I watch the segment to find out whether or not Strassman got off a good one? Yes, I did. But we are not playing the game here.
We are learning new information about what happened at last week's school shooting in Winder, Georgia. The grandfather of the 14-year-old suspect tells CBS News that the boy's mother received a cryptic text from her son the morning of the shooting, prompting her to call the school to warn them.
Marcy got a text on the phone from Colt saying, "I'm sorry, Mother." And then we heard on the news of the shooting.
CBS News senior national correspondent Mark Strassman is in Winder, Georgia. Mark, what are we learning from the suspect's family?
Just that there were a couple of last-minute red flags that in the end might have been missed opportunities to stop what happened here. It's of course very difficult to speculate about that, but the day before the shooting, the suspect's maternal grandmother went to the school to talk about her grandson's behavioral issues. Not clear what was done about it at that point. And then the morning of the shooting, the suspect's mother got a text from him that said, "I'm sorry, Mother." The mother heard alarm bells, called the school and said, this is an extreme emergency. Go find my son, check on him. And they went looking for him, apparently, but it looked for a child who had similar spellings of both names, and in the end didn't find the suspect himself. By the time the suspect, who was out of his second period algebra class, by the time they located the suspect, he was standing in the hallway, reportedly carrying the AR rifle that was used in the shooting. And so it was too late. So there were troublesome signs at the last minute that something awful could happen. And it's not as though they were necessarily missed, but the connection between the information and getting a hold of the 14-year-old boy, now the suspect, that just never happened in time.
A lot of questions still, Mark. How is the community healing and just trying to begin to process what happened?
Yeah, it's awful, to be honest. I mean, last week I thought it was sort of equal parts of grief and shock, and I think now the shock has, some of it at least, has worn away, but you're just left with the grief and the anguish of two teachers and two 14-year-old students who are never coming back. And how do you come to terms with both their loss and then, to some degree, a loss of innocence in the community itself? I mean, once something happens in a community like this, the community is changed. And people here always talk about lift up Appalachia, and of course that is a noble goal. But part of lifting up Appalachia, of course, is coming to terms with what did happen here, and that is where this community is right now. Somewhere in the process of healing, but they're nowhere close to healed.
I wanted to play. Sorry, I thought that this clip was going to be in this other one. I'm going to quickly play just a moment from another Strassman report where a sheriff talks quickly, and then we can talk more.
4 people killed, 2 teachers and 2 students. 9 others were injured.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today.
I wanted to get that clip in of that sheriff talking about pure evil and compare it with what J.D. Vance said about what psychos will do. It's not pure evil that did this. This was in all...
It's a very mean thing to say. I know that killing people is meaner.
Yeah, in the way that people talk about evil, if you're from a certain sort of evangelical or Christian background, you can lay the blame for this on the existence of evil in the world, right? Like the devil somehow is doing this. But like the individual who did this is in all likelihood, even if we grant that there is such a thing as pure evil in humans and that people act because they are evil, it's far more likely that this is just a fucking fucked up lonely kid who looks at a screen 16 hours a day and has very bad ideas in his head about what other people are. There's the phrase that gets thrown around a bunch that has started to bother me more, and maybe it's just because I'm old and it makes me uncomfortable in certain ways. Non-playable character. People online often talk about encountering NPCs in real life. An NPC, for the layman who doesn't play a lot of video games, it would be someone that you find in a video game who's dumb, who's a non-person, who's not a character that you can actually become, and they're just sort of like milling about in the background, and they're not actually... Nothing has even been programmed into them except they do one thing. They walk. It's like a Grand Theft Auto character who walks from his front door to his mailbox at the same time every day. And like you can run him over with your fucking car in Grand Theft Auto if you go by at 9:17 in the morning every day. But that's the full extent to which you can interact with this character. He's just there to be background noise, and maybe you can run him over with your fucking car. Right. And so... Elon Musk has recently tweeted in these terms, and it's not him who's invented the phrase by any means, but people are always talking about encountering NPCs in real life, and a person who, say, spouts only the mainstream opinion about things, someone will go online and say, had a weird encounter with an NPC today who could only talk about things as though he's been watching MSNBC all day, right? Like a person who doesn't think for themselves, who's been programmed in a certain way, and who, in the way that you're describing them, is subhuman by your understanding of things. It's a funny twist on woke in a way where someone who has become aware of injustice in a certain way is now woken up, right? They are woke to a reality that they were not privy to before. The same thing goes for the way we talk about taking the red pill, right? Yeah. That once you take the red pill, you've now become aware of reality in a way that diminishes the experience of everyone else who is still seeing the world through glasses that you have taken off, right? That you have now had the truth of the world revealed to you in a way that was not possible before. My suspicion about this young person who did this horrible thing where he shut up the school is that he encounters people in that school as NPCs, as non-playable characters, as people that are not full humans to him in a way that he believes himself to be. And probably he's deeply mentally troubled, right, in various ways, or emotionally or psychologically fucked up. And I don't want to blame it on mental illness. I don't want to blame it on anything.
But, I mean, that's what it is, though.
Right, but it's to lay it at the feet of mental illness, I think excuses a lot of what I'm talking about in terms of the way that we have come to understand other people in the age of the phone, in the age of social media, in the age of being incredibly well connected to hundreds of millions of people at a moment's notice that we cannot possibly grok as full human beings. It is beyond our capacity to understand that every other human being in the world is a human being with as much depth and sincerity and meaning as we are. It's too big a concept. It's too big a concept at times for me to fully appreciate that I have kids who are that, right? And I love them more than I could possibly love anyone else in the world, right? There's no getting around it. And it still staggers me and stuns me to find that I'm occasionally surprised by the depth of humanity in the person that I brought into this fucking world. So of course it's difficult for isolated kids who spend all of their time staring at screens to come to terms with that in their fellow classmates and the people that they see in the world.
So what's interesting is that...
And I'm sorry, just to finish the point.
Yeah.
And is that evil? Is that psychotic? Or is that just something that happens to people because of the way we've arranged the world, right? And I know that they're just reaching for the simplest explanation, right? J.D. Vance and the sheriff are reaching for psycho and evil because it's a pat way of understanding the world. And it makes it easier to see a way through. If you can say that's just a psycho, that's just a weirdo. The way that I'm understanding it suggests that we are creating these creatures, right? We are creating the conditions in a way that makes it sort of inevitable and not evil, not psychotic, just the natural result of being here.
So the shooter is 14 years old, and I did want to touch on that about his age in a second, but to the point about evil. I imagine he is not unique in how much exposure he has to smartphones. Other kids are watching a bunch of nonsense, right?
And to be clear, I have no idea how much time he spends looking at a screen. I'm making all of that up.
But what I'm saying is, okay, so if you're like the sheriff or the law enforcement person we just listened to, or J.D. Vance or whomever, when you're like reaching for like evil or deranged or psychopath or whatever, basically it's like if you were to look at all the factors that lead up to a shooter, you have like, broken home. I think like his parents were like crackheads or something, or I don't know, like not responsible parents, right? Not a very safe.
Anytime that the grandparents feature prominently in the conversation about the kid, you can assume that the parents fucked up somehow.
But then again, J.D. Vance is
not always.
J.D. Vance had like a shaky kind of household, and he turned out okay, right? So it's like when
my point stands.
But what I'm saying is that you can look at all of these things and all these factors that maybe could contribute to a shooter, but no one shoots people except for kids like him. So, like, what is it about this one 14-year-old shithead in Winder, Georgia, and other places around the country that have all these other extra things that you can find other commonalities with other kids, like, but they're the ones that actually do it. There may be kids who are on chats with their friends talking about NPCs or saying these people are not real or whatever, right? Or minimizing or diminishing other human beings, right? But they may just say that just for the weird humor of it, right? But this kid actually went out and acted on it. So what is that extra ingredient? What is that special ingredient? They're saying evil, right? Now, evil you can believe in or not, or deranged you can believe in or not, but like there's something in addition to all the things you can point to that made this 14-year-old do what he did. And it's not clear what it is, because like you can run the numbers back and no one else is shooting 4 people to death.
I think it's a war of attrition. I think there are 350 fucking million people in this country. There are 400 odd million guns in this country, and eventually the ones who are capable of such things come into contact with the weapons that make it possible,
right.
And this is the result. Like I don't know what the ingredient is. I don't know if it's microplastics. I don't know if it's screen time. I don't know if it's the fact that
that's the whole
I don't know
thing,
if
is
it's the
there's
fact
no
that his
one
name
thing.
is Colt, right? Like mommy and daddy apparently they're either horse enthusiasts or they're gun enthusiasts, and all signs point to gun enthusiasm.
They arrested the dad,
in the home.
Right?
So like,
and so because it could be any one of those just random factors. If you're a law enforcement person and you grew up around guns and you're like a responsible gun owner, let's say, right? I'm just I don't know if that's true about this guy, but like you're gonna try to other this 14-year-old. Like he's not doing anything that I'm doing, right? So I can't blame it on guns because I have guns and I know how to use them properly. This kid must be evil. Basically, it's like this kind of like
that's what it
placeholder
is.
thing. Like I don't know about this fucking evil. Like,
it's a way of acting like J.D. Vance sort of said, like, oh, there's nothing we can do about this. Right. There's evil.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna get dead at school. Like,
it's basically
it's a way of avoiding the obvious solution or
and absolving
partial
responsibility
solution to a problem.
Yeah, nothing we can do.
Yeah, gun laws won't help. There's always going to be evil.
But what?
Yeah, and it's the problem is that's a persuasive position because to some extent
not really.
I know, but there is always going. Do you know how impossible it is to end this sort of violence? Like just in terms of 4 people being dead and 9 people being injured, that's a really enraged person with a box cutter at a high school.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not. I'm not saying that the guns aren't a problem. I think they are a massive problem, but I think that it's a problem on a similar scale with what I was talking about, with the culture, with the kids, with the way that we interact with our fellow humans today versus before, and the media environment that we live in. I think that 400 million guns in a country of 350 million people is a problem that cannot be solved with the approach that we've been taking with any of the gun control approaches that we've been taking. Maybe over the course of decades, you can start to hammer away at it, and you say, simply no one under the age of 21 is allowed to touch a fucking thing, right? I think that would make a huge difference. But you know what that means? That means long jail sentences for people who are found to have guns. And I'm sorry, but that means that will disproportionately impact communities that we don't want to disproportionately impact, right? And that's the other thing that I got into last week when I was looking into the dead kids phenomenon, which is for all of the attention that is paid to school shootings. I don't think that this got mentioned on the show, so I'll say the statistic again. I was trying to find what percentage of kids who die from firearms die in school shootings, and it's a hard number to come by in terms of somebody actually tracking this stuff. But it's roughly speaking, for the years that I could find this information, it seems to be about 2%. Right. That of the children that die by firearm in this country every year, it's 2% of them die in school shootings. And this gets a hugely outsized percentage of the coverage. The other big part of the coverage that gets it is like black crime, right? You go to Breitbart and you go to the black crime tab if you're a real fucking psycho, and you go through that, and it's like, oh, look at all the dead black Chicago teens, and you'll get some of that. That's another percentage of it. Most of it's accidents and suicides. Right. And that gets no attention because it's just a personal tragedy for fucking 15 people, and that's all that it is. But, and like that's a problem that is functionally impossible to solve because there are 400 plus million guns in the country, and there are guns in the homes of these people. Just simply having that access means that it's going to happen. It's why the veteran suicide rate is so high, because you have a relatively more likely to be depressive population combined with a relatively more likely to own a firearm population, and you multiply those two numbers together and you get a high number of veteran suicides.
Right. I mean, I think just the setting is actually what makes it such a newsworthy event. So like the percentages will never persuade anyone because it's like it should be at 0. There should be like no kids getting shot up at schools, right? So like it wouldn't be like, most of the time it happens elsewhere. Like that's not going to win anyone over because they're thinking it should be never. Like it is, like
sure.
In most places.
The only point of the 2% is that we could literally solve the school shooting problem. We could J.D. Vance it. We could build them into.
Is that true?
We could build moats around the schools and metal detect every single person that comes and goes. And there could be never another kid that dies by firearm in a school, and it would make statistically no difference whatsoever to the number of children who die by firearm in this country. Right. And that, it means that the problem is so much worse than we think that it is, I think.
Right. And I mean, I don't think anyone would go for just hard. I mean, you would have to harden up so many targets that are soft, right? That it just wouldn't work.
I would be for it, but I'm in the minority there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day they'll have like the gargoyle drones that will protect the schools. I don't know. But like, it just seems to be like, it is a very callous thing to say what J.D. Vance said, but that is kind of like the reality we've been operating under. Like, hey, sometimes people get shot, not always at school. It could be at a concert. It could be wherever, but there's not much you can do because no one wants to do anything about it. So that's why like these news stories kind of come and go. What I did find interesting is the father was charged along with the kid, right? So the child is tried as an adult, all right? And maybe this is just only interesting to me. So the child is tried as an adult for the crime, which is a typical thing that happens.
The 14-year-old child.
Yeah, 14-year-old tried as an adult for the crime that he's alleged to have committed. And then the father is being charged. I mean, there's different charges, but basically the thrust of the charge is that you facilitated and gave access to your 14-year-old kid.
Right.
So like he's a child in one context, and then he's an adult. Basically, it's like,
Right. This is been a bugaboo of yours for
what's
years
going
now.
on?
He's correct,
and it's only getting worse because you used to just complain about the kids getting tried as adults. Now we're starting to charge the adults who are supposed to be responsible for the kids on top of charging the kids as adults. And you're right, it doesn't. There's an incongruity here that doesn't make any sense.
Because basically, there's double jeopardy is enshrined into the fabric of our justice system, but there should be like a double dipping thing too. You can't pick a lane if you want to try the kid as a kid and then do all the. I think that would make sense.
The child neglect and stuff.
Yeah. And pin that, because there was already a case where both the mother and father were convicted, like in Michigan, for another shooting. But this one was like so fast. Like the shooting happened, and like within a couple of days, the father is charged. They have a lot of information. The FBI was involved. There was all of these indicators that they.
Well, didn't the FBI a year ago look into this kid? Right.
And
this is not the first time.
And I think that's why the charges came for the father, because like, dude, we talked to you about this, and like after the fact, you're like, hey, here's more weaponry, have at it. And so like, I mean, not to presume, but that father's fucked. He's gonna be convicted because it just looks like the sequence of events is very damning to him. And so yeah, but it's just interesting that and it's. These charges are, by the way, welcome. I'm like in a minority opinion when it comes to this. Like everybody's like, yes, because we must do something. And then when you hear this is the something, we're going to hold the parents accountable, because the thinking is if the stupid kid isn't going to be deterred by our laws, maybe the guardian or the parent will. But like, because if they understand it to be like you're on the hook for what your kid does.
This is the sort of thing that will have zero impact on other parents who provide firearms to their children. I do not believe that there is someone who thinks that it is a good and lawful right and a good ethic in general for their teenage child to be familiar with and have a relative ease with firearms that is going to be convinced by this asshole getting charged for whatever crimes it is that he's being charged with. It will have no impact on those people whatsoever. Yeah. It is just virtue signaling on behalf of by the prosecutors. It's just trying to find someone else to blame. This is not the way. This is not the way to solve the problem.
It will. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to be in the jury pool, so it doesn't matter what I say. But that the charges are going to stick for him. Like the father's going to.
Yes, you're right. They will hold him account. They will hold him to account, and it won't matter for anyone else. Like it's like the death penalty. Yes, that person will be convicted, but it's not going to matter to the next fucking idiot who commits a murder in the course of a felony and ends up on death row. All right.
Oh, by the way, real quick, while we're at this and the debate is tomorrow, do you think this will any question come out of this, like this shooting? Will there be any gun?
Yes, there will be a gun control question at the debate tomorrow, and there will not be any satisfactory answers delivered by either candidate, is my prediction. That's the easiest prediction that I could have possibly made tonight. I want to flush this conversation from our system in some way, so I will introduce a new segment tonight, in which Bob, I give health and wellness advice to our aging population out there. It's tips from a healthy middle-aged dude to the rest of the world. And I chose flush there in a punny sort of way on purpose. Abe, I started taking a fiber supplement a little more than a week ago. I would say it was at in consult with a healthcare provider, but that's not the case. What happened was
Bob hasn't been to a healthcare provider for 20 years.
It's been a long time. I was with my brother and his wonderful wife and my niece at my dad's place over the summer, and Emily was taking Metamucil. She was taking this big old jug of stuff and mixing it in water into this disgusting looking gray sludge and then chugging it down first thing in the morning. And I laughed at her. I said, "What the fuck are you doing that for? Old? Don't do that. That seems gross." But it put a little bug in my head, and I was like, I could afford to be a little bit more regular. And people do the fiber supplementation for such things. And Abe, I have to say, fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what your situation is down there on the Metamucil front or the fiber supplement front.
I'm a fiber gummies person.
Oh yeah, gummies. You take a fiber gummy.
Fiber gummies, nice.
So I got the big old jug. I was gonna go just outright to Costco and just get the fucking industrial amount of Metamucil and just be set for the next 6 months. But then I looked at it. It was like fucking $45, and it was on sale. That's a lot of money. Now, granted, it's a lot of Metamucil, but like, what if I'm not into the Metamucil?
That's true.
I got to start smaller, right? Give it a test run.
Yeah, I think that was a good call.
Went to Wegmans, got a smaller amount of Metamucil, and have been doing 2 heaping teaspoons into 8 ounces of water first thing in the morning with my eggy breakfast that I have every day. Fucking spectacular. Again, I've not had a problem really with irregularity in the past, but to be as crass about it as possible, I'm now thoroughly regular.
Oh, look at that.
And the best part is that whatever I'm spending on Metamucil, I'm going to save in the toilet paper aisle. Because my dumps, Abe, to be, I know this is uncomfortable, but we're getting older. You got to have these sorts of conversations as you age with your pals. The dumps are fucking, they're one and done. Basically, you sit on the fucking shitter for like 20 minutes. Sometimes, just to see what else might happen. Like you take a dump and it's like, I'm not sure things are finished down there, so we're going to hang out. We'll do the crossword or what have you on the phone, or we'll dick around on Twitter for a little while. But now you fucking sit down, fucking 2 minutes later,
Kablam.
done.
Yeah.
Nothing else is coming out. I'm certain of it. And then the toilet paper comes out, fucking clean as a whistle. You could eat off of my asshole these days if you wanted to. Not that you want to, but like I barely have to do anything down there and everything. I used to be in the like maybe we need a bidet type situation because we're having to go through some extra toilet paper here that I'm tired of it. And I started looking into bidets. But no. Save money on the bidet, save money on the toilet paper. It's one wipe, and it's just a check. It's not even, there's no wipe. Right. It's just, let's just double check, make sure everything's fine down there. Because everything is cleared the fuck out, and we are good to fucking go. Get some Metamucil, take a healthy amount with your breakfast in the morning, and fucking thank me later.
Did you apologize for poo-pooing Emily?
Consider this my apology.
They don't listen.
And if
to
they
this.
want to listen, then they can hear the goddamn apology. But no, I did not reach out to Emily yet and say
he'd have to
thank you.
apologize for so many other things first. Like this is
There's a long line of things.
This is a list of things he's made fun of Emily for.
But thank you, Emily, for opening my eyes and my butthole to the glorious wonders of Metamucil. I appreciate it. All right, let's roll the dice.
Okay.
Let's roll the dice and find out just how far we've fallen as a culture since 1983 to 2012 or so. That, of course, is our relative youths. And music was better then, and we are proving it by comparing a song from today's Billboard Hot 100 chart with a song from a year in that time frame. As determined by the dice, we are going to year 15 of our contest and all the way down the Billboard Hot 100 chart to position number 94.
94. Wow.
What is that, 1997?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, 1997 and position number 94 on our list. Billboard Hot 100 for this week is number 1 is still a bar song by Shabuzi. Very popular song. Sabrina Carpenter, new song, Taste, debuts at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. She's also in there at 3 and 4. She's the subject of some conspiracy mongering.
Oh, yeah?
The people out there are saying that Spotify and the other algos are jamming Sabrina Carpenter down our throats, that we did not choose Sabrina Carpenter, but she was chosen for us by the algorithm, is what people are saying. I don't buy it. I'm sure that attractive blondes making pop music often are popular just because of that, and you don't need any algorithmic help to push them along. Number 94, all the way down here at the end, is someone called Megan Maroney, and the song is "Am I Okay?" We just missed at number 95 the person Lori keeps talking about, Chappelle Roan, and a song called "My Kink Is Karma." It sounds like she is into Schadenfreude as well. Perhaps Chappell Roan is a big college football fan and likes to see the suffering of Auburn people as much as I do. Man, I know this isn't cast iron balls, but watching Hugh Freeze be miserable on the sideline of Auburn was really fun as his shitty-ass quarterback threw like 5 interceptions. They turned the ball over 5 times and still only lost by a single touchdown. That is a terrific moral victory for a program like Auburn to take out of a loss to Cal, which is, take heart, team. We turned it over 5 times and only lost by a touchdown. All right. I predict that I will find this song annoying and cloying, even though I know nothing about it. But a song that asks, "Am I okay?" does not speak to me right off the bat. But I guess we'll find out. My guess, just looking at her face, Megan, you're fucking fine, actually. I know that you're in character for this song, but all things considered, you're living at the spear, the tip of the spear of human achievement in the modern world, and things are fucking fine, actually.
It's a cute little dress she has on.
I check my pulse and my heart's still beating.
Oh, it's country. Oh, that's a bad voice. She's not okay. I was wrong.
Both feet on the ground, but something's changed.
Oh, it's country with that vocal fry.
I've been playing less black keys, baby, and my friends swear I've gone crazy. I don't know how to act, I don't know what to say. 'Cause oh my God, he walked in like a 6'2" dream, heaven sent.
He's talking about me. 6'2" dream, heaven sent.
And he's funny and he's smart and he's good in. Love ain't always what it was. Not crying and dying and messing me up. I think I'm really happy. I think I wanna stay. Oh my God, am I okay?
So that song sucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's playing the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida
And the
on
UK.
Thursday,
Wow.
November 14th. Why can't she say he's good in bed, but she can imply that he's good in bed? What is the demure bullshit going on there in that lyric? That was silly.
Yeah, that was weird. I without looking at her name until when you mentioned her at the beginning, I wrote down Maroney M.A., not moron E. Like,
That's right. It's moron EY. And it wouldn't surprise me, based on her voice, if at some point in the past she said Moroni to someone, and like her uncle just wrote down Moroni, moron EY instead, just by mistake. Kind of like my old boss, my first pizza boss at Papa John's in Athens was Bruce, and we had some stores not just in Athens that we would have to occasionally work at, so we would have to go to Monroe from time to time. It's another town less than an hour or so from Athens. Monroe, Monroe, of course. If you had to go work in Monroe, when we would be scheduled to go work at another store, Bruce would just write on the schedule under our name, moron. because he thought that Monroe was spelled
Probably
moron.
dyslexic.
Or just he didn't bother. Like close enough. You see the M and the O and the N and the R in there, and it's like, there you go. That's Monroe. Yeah. And so on the schedule from time to time, next to your name, it would just say moron. And that was not his way of insulting you. That was his way of saying, hey, make sure you go to the Monroe.
Idiot. You're
Make sure
going
you
to
go to the
Monroe.
Monroe store instead of showing up here at Westside. Anyway, that was good old Bruce. I will now pull up the Billboard Hot 100 for the second week of September 1997. At the top of the charts, as she so reliably was in the 1990s, is Mariah Carey with Honey. We also have Mo Money, Mo Problems.
Nice.
Notorious B.I.G. with Puff Daddy. The Backstreet Boys, Quit Playing Games with My Heart. LeAnn Rimes, Spice Girls, Usher, Puff Daddy, Third Eye Blind, Barbie Girl by Aqua,
Wow.
and Drew Hill rounding out the top 10. Number 11, All For You by Sister Hazel.
Nice.
Jewel with Foolish
Wow.
Games. Lil' Kim, early Lil' Kim, I would think, featuring Debrat, Left Eye, and Missy Elliott. Then we get to Timbaland, 98 Degrees.
All right, this is a boring
I'm sorry,
conversation.
I agree, but it took me 15 spots to get to someone who you would be like, wait, who? Like, who is Robin? I don't know. Sean Colvin, I remember the name, doesn't matter. Just an incredible run there in 1997. As we go flying down all the way to the end, Daft Punk and Queen Latifah, Depeche Mode, 1997, number 94. God damn it. We found another country song, I think.
Ooh, almost definitely.
I'm basing that only on the picture of this guy with a black cowboy hat on. Do I have to play it? I guess I have to play it.
We have to decide which country song is worse.
The song is Drink, Swear, Steal, and Lie. If the cowboy hat didn't give it away, then perhaps the title of the song would have. It sure sounds like a country song. Here's Michael Peterson, Drink, Swear, Steal, and Lie.
Wow. This doesn't fuck around about it, though.
I was 12 when Daddy said to me, don't take to drinking, boy, that road don't lead nowhere. And don't you ever let me hear you swear, don't you dare. He told me stealing is a lazy man's way. Something for nothing leaves you held.
This song better take a turn where he finds out that drinking and swearing and stealing and lying are fucking awesome. And if that's the turn the song takes, it's got the win. If this is just about how his dad was a good Christian man, I'm going to be bummed.
So we have to listen to the whole thing?
I must confess I'm just a backsliding fool. I wanna drink from your loving cup. Swear I'll never give you up. Steal all your kisses underneath the moon. I wanna lie here close to you. Look what you make me do. Darling, you're the reason why I drink, swear, steal, and lie.
Blaming the woman. You're the reason why I drink, swear, steal, and lie.
He's joyfully blaming the woman. He's having
This is how
fun.
I feel about us, Lori. You're the reason why I drink, swear, steal, and lie.
That's not true, though.
1.8 million views low these many years later.
Like, this is Garth Brooks without being Garth Brooks.
Yeah, it's Garth Brooks without the Riz, as the kids might say. But I'm going to hand it to Michael Peterson.
Yeah.
Abe, do you vote?
It's easy Michael Peterson.
Let's see if we can find any good comments here. The days when country music had heart. This song takes me back to the good old days. What are the chances that any of the people in the comment section here, YouTube, for drink, why can't I say it? Drink, swear, steal, and lie are Kamala Harris voters? I think it's a low percentage.
Is it possible these are all like robots?
This song has been stuck in my head for 3 days, and now it pops up.
That's how it works.
We are brought to this page by chance, right? You just do the stupid number thing, and then we just happen to roll the dice, and it hits whatever, 94, 90, whatever. Like, what brings these people
97.
to this page?
I mean, this fucking awesome song, obviously. Apparently, he guest starred on Walker, Texas Ranger. So maybe you caught a rerun of Walker, Texas Ranger on Pluto TV or Tubi or whatever. You flipped over there, and now you're YouTubing Michael Peterson again.
For what it's worth, I watched all of those episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger. What a great show.
There's a comment here that says, I love you, Daddy, R.I.P. That's weird.
The dad probably liked the song.
Do we think Michael Peterson is dead? Who's
No,
the daddy
I think
in
that
this
the
comment?
dad, I think their dad liked this song, and they don't know that you can't communicate with the dead via YouTube comments.
Gotcha. I do want to, this is unanimous, of course, we've given it to Michael Peterson here. I'd like to point out that my most liked YouTube comment in the history of me commenting on YouTube, which granted is a minimal amount of comments on YouTube, is I found out, I don't know, I haven't been getting notifications, but then I see a notification on my phone for my the show YouTube account. It's like 16 people have liked your comment. And I was like,
That's
what?
a lot.
What are we talking about here? And I click it, and it's the one where I said, anyone still listening in 2037? It was my time travel comment about how whatever shitty song we listened to that week was still popular in 2037.
All right, be done, because it's late.
It's late. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. And Lori's here, too. That's right. I've roped you into this podcast now as well. I'm going to have to redo the animation, the logo for the show. There will be a Lori in front of a microphone.
No.
Yeah, why not? Fuck it.
You may do that
Head on over to BrainIron.
when you
Thank
have done
That's the end of
everything
the-
else that I've asked you to do.
Oh, fuck. BrainIron. See, she's why I drink steel, swear, and lie, but not in that order. BrainIron.substack.com for more from us. You can also check out Mark Gillig, who composed our opening and closing themes at tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. He's getting married soon, and I assume once all of that nonsense is taken care of, right?
10 weeks.
The wedding is over. Now you can go back to making more rock and roll music, right? That becomes the focus of your newlywed life, I believe.
7 weeks.
Is how that works. We need more Tetramer. Fellas, get on it.
Tetra more.
Ooh, got him. Abe, what movie did you go see on Sunday evening?
I went to go see Beetlejuice Part 2, or as they call it, Beetlejuice. I think that's the official title.
Yes.
This movie did great at the box office this weekend. I mean, every showing was just about full. A lot of kids. I guess the kids are into this movie. A lot of kids at my showing on Sunday evening. The movie is entertaining, a little too busy with the storyline. It's just too many things are happening that aren't.
Did you see the first one recently?
Yes,
okay,
like a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
Where's the first one available to stream, or did you?
It's on
have
the
to rent
Hobo,
it
HBO Max.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Michael Keaton and Catherine O'Hara, if you like them, you'll like this movie. Actually, if you like the first movie, you'll also like this one. The part where I say it's a little too busy is they would bring these characters, and then they would use them throughout the movie, but at the end they would just kind of disappear. They would just kind of come and go. You could have just done without them. And for instance, you had Monica Bellucci. She plays the big bad in this movie. She comes from a long time ago. She was married to.
She was in the second Matrix movie as the smoke show brunette.
Okay, so she does a bit of that, except she's like a.
I know her is
Bob
what my
knows brunettes.
is what my brain just did. And if you're going to say she's unwelcome in this film, I'm disagreeing just right off the top because I know her and she's fine. She should be in more things.
I believe her character is a soul sucker. She literally comes up to you and she just.
I'm for it.
Sucks the soul out of you. And at the beginning, a very formidable soul sucker. There's no defense against it. They had Danny DeVito in a big part, and he gets sucked out of existence, and she does this to everybody.
That's not something I want to see. It's Danny DeVito and Monica Bellucci in any sort of sucking situation. But go on.
So they play her she's tough, and Beetlejuice is scared of her. They go into this explanation as to in thousands of years ago they were married, and he left her, and she's like upset about it, and she's wants to exact revenge on him now, and he's like running away from her. But anyways, like
I'm sorry, but if you're Monica Bellucci, isn't Beetlejuice's appearance revenge enough? Right? Like, surely when they got together, this is not what Beetlejuice looked like. Time has not been kind to Mr. Beetlejuice. Whereas I assume that she's done up in such a way as to suggest that time has been fairly kind to her through the
so
years.
she had to be chopped up and put in different compartments to prevent her strength or some bullshit reason. So she stapled herself together. She's not like, peak Monica Bellucci, but she's Monica Bellucci. She's still doing well. Anyway,
Abe approves.
The movie just kind of moved along, and like just a lot of just wacky things happened, which is what happened with the first movie. But it's entertaining. They try to work in like the young girl Jenny Ortega. She's the daughter of Winona Ryder's character, and she is like being like obnoxious a bit because her parents don't understand about something. I don't know. She meets some guy, some cute boy.
I'm sorry. I Googled Monica. I'm sorry to interrupt. She's with Tim Burton.
What? In real life?
This fucking guy.
Oh.
Tim Burton is with Monica Bellucci. He did this with
Helena Bonham Carter.
Helena Bonham Carter for years, where he put her in all of his movies.
Out.
This guy's this fucking weirdo, man.
Boy.
Hey,
What?
don't tell other people are weird.
No, I like Tim Burton movies largely. I think that it can be a bit much, as Abe is saying.
It's just something you're saying. It's like you date Tim Burton, you are at risk of being in his movie.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. It's part of the
That
package.
makes more sense now because I was like, what is going on here? Like, why is she in? But okay, fine. Anyways, the movie just kind of carries along, and at the end, everything works out well, and the movie ends, and it's fine. It's not like my favorite movie, but I like the first one. I don't know if because it worked better. I don't know what it was, but like
because it had a certain charm when
Yeah.
it was a new and original idea, and it wasn't just going through the motions of satisfying various IP requirements in order to make a big pile of money 30 years later. That's probably it.
And I mean, based on the way that it did this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if they just did another one like soon, just to get more money because like people like it. Why not?
Yeah. Did we watch anything?
No.
God damn it. We just watched football.
The problem is there is so much football and I have school.
Yes.
So during the week when there's no football or when there is, I'm busy or I'm talking to you guys.
Right.
And then
There's a lot more of that lately. What are we doing?
And then on Saturday, honestly, I know, wrong podcast. I feel bad for people who don't love college football because Saturday was fucking awesome. And so was last Saturday. Like, this whole thing has been fun. So, like, it's okay that I'm not watching movies right now. I am on the second to last long episode of my SEC documentary.
Oh, nice. By the way, I will say, again, it's not the sports version of the show, but like just the outlook of games for college football looks amazing. Like there's going to be so many like good games. And then
so
the
fucking
playoffs will
fun.
begin. It'll be just like, let's be what's
This is in part due to the realignment that we were largely like, that I didn't want to happen, but there's no denying the fun that happens when USC becomes a Big Ten team, right? Or when Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC, like things just get more interesting.
Fucking fun.
And it comes
and
at the cost.
Not even the interesting stuff hasn't even happened.
I know, but it comes at you don't notice the cost when you see all of the shiny new baubles, but like UGA not playing Mizzou, as silly as that is to even complain about,
It's
because
fine.
a decade ago it would have been like, well, who fucking cares if we don't play Mizzou?
We didn't play them more
we
than
didn't play
that.
them for years, right? But like, it's a bummer that UGA doesn't play Mizzou this year when Mizzou is like a legitimate contender, and we might not ever see those two teams on the field, and that fucking sucks. That's stupid.
Could see them in
Whatever.
playoffs.
Yeah, potentially. I watched one episode of Silo on Apple TV Plus, which is the book series that I was listening to, wrapped up in fine fashion, if entirely predictable fashion. The trilogy that I listened to by Hugh Howey, and the first episode of Silo was good and faithful to the text, but embellished in ways that are necessary for such a project. And if you like sort of high-end sci-fi, check it out on Apple TV. It's fine.
Is that the one where people can like leave the silo and then they show like a video of like they're dying or something? Or I remember seeing like an episode or two of that show. Is that the same show?
If you watch, yeah, the first episode is a good primer for the whole series, but basically humanity as we know it is reduced to living in this underground silo that goes many hundreds of levels deep into the ground, and they have to go up and down this giant staircase at the center of the silo. There's no lift or elevator, and they live entirely underground, and that you can get yourself tossed out of society, civilization, and effectively killed by saying, I want to go outside. And they will oblige you. Unfortunately, that means that they put you in this suit, and once you make it out there, the environment is so harsh that it very quickly eats away at your ability to sustain yourself and the suit's ability to protect you, and you die shortly thereafter in full view of the cameras that are showing the outside world to the people of the silo. So yeah, that's the long and the short of it, and the story proceeds from there. Not everything is as it seems in the first episode, as I know from having read the whole series, but worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight. Then again, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
We didn't talk about James Earl Jones after all, and I said that
we
we
didn't.
Would. What was the
He's
first
dead.
when you? So I see the notification. James Earl Jones is dead now. What is the first role that comes to mind for James Earl Jones?
I mean, I just think of him. Isn't he the CNN? This is CNN guy. Like he had.
Well, there you
Wow,
go.
Abe.
That's
Wow.
Abe in a nutshell.
Wow.
Is I think
Jesus
of
fucking
this
Christ.
is CNN.
What else is
I
there?
mean, the Sandlot probably.
I mean, the very first thing is Darth Vader.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, is it like the concept of James Earl Jones or the picture?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Darth Vader. It doesn't
Because
matter.
if you say James Earl Jones, yes, it's Darth Vader. But if you show me a picture, that's the guy from The Sandlot.
Right. And the thing that is amazing is that it doesn't matter that Hayden Christensen played Anakin Skywalker and David Prowse played Darth Vader as the man under the mask. Doesn't fucking matter.
No.
Darth Vader is James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones is Darth
Yeah.
Vader, and that's what comes to mind. He is the perfect embodiment of the ultimate galactic evil, and no amount of trying to rehabilitate the character through the prequels is going to matter to me in the long run. He is Darth Vader even in Rogue One, just badass Darth Vader kicking everybody's ass. And then after that, it's Field of Dreams was the second thing that I thought of.
It depends on if we're talking about James Earl Jones, the concept. It's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
But if you see a picture of him, which is what I did, that's either Sandlot or Field of only baseball things.
Sandlot, Field of Dreams, and then I go to the Tom Clancy movies from the 90s because he was in all three of those, Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games and Hunt for Red October. He was in those movies more than the star of that. Jack Ryan changed actors more frequently than they changed James Earl Jones characters. And then beyond that, his film debut was in Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. It was amusing to run across him the first time I saw that movie when I was a teenager, to see that was the first film acting that he ever did.
The other thing that I was looking at, look at the obituary. They keep talking about the Star Wars business, but like the Lion King was another one. Like I just remember the guy's voice
as
like,
Mufasa, the voice of Mufasa.
Yeah, well, he's
and
done a
then
lot in his 93 years.
He was in Coming to America.
Yeah.
As the
Dad.
elder
Right.
statesman.
Yes.
And then his final film role was in the dreadful sequel to Coming to America. That was the last time they pulled him out of semi-retirement to be in that pile of shit. And that was the last time he was seen in a movie.
Wow.
But
Great
yeah,
voice.
Good old James Earl Jones.
He had a great voice.
Amazing voice, and someone who I don't remember getting even the slightest glimpse of a personal life. Just a purely sort of joyous presentation, I don't remember him, like if he ever had a 60 Minutes profile or a CBS Sunday News Sunday morning profile done, I don't remember seeing it. Maybe I'll search through the archives for that sort of thing. But no personal life, no diminishment. The anti-Cosby, to make the easy racial point here. Like, no worry whatsoever about James Earl Jones secretly being a bad person, just because he never presented in a personal sort of way. But yeah, too bad about that guy. But I guess he was fucking old.
Yeah,
and again, 93, and Jimmy Carter still lives.
Still alive.
What the fuck?
I closed out my
Lori left because she doesn't fucking want to say goodnight to you, Abe. So you can fuck right
Good
off.
night, Abe.
Good night.
Talk to you tomorrow after the big
right.
show. All right. Good night.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.